Hello, I'm Dave Waisman, and I'm really happy to be speaking today with Mustafa of Fine Art Minerals. Mustafa, good to talk to you today.
Dave, nice to talk to you as well.
You've
Nice to
been
see you.
finding some really wonderful things lately.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I think the most important finding beautiful things is all about passion, love that you should have, and that's what it's all about. And because of that passion and love that since childhood I had is just, I always been looking for something spectacular, great, or fine, really fine quality that can just.
We're all looking for the fine
That's right.
mineral.
Right.
How do you define a fine mineral? Do you have a list of qualities or characteristics that you would discuss?
I think it's a very good question, Dave. I think maybe my answer would be a bit complicated, but if I
That's
would,
okay.
if I would explain from my perspective, how do you define fine minerals? I would say first and foremost, the moment that you see the mineral, your heart beating start to just become faster.
Yeah.
So what that means is that click in your heart that it says wow. So that is the first thing. I think I'm sure that the mineral collectors know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
So that's what exactly happens to me. So the first click of your heartbeat does go faster, and then you start to fall in love. And I think I would say the most important thing is the static in fine minerals.
Yeah.
It has to be very beautiful, presented very beautiful, and of course on top of that, for fine minerals, the most important points that I would mention is the aesthetic, the quality, and the color. These are the three things that I would definitely put on top when you're looking for really fine minerals. It has to have a really great color. I mean, it has to have a very good aesthetic. And of course, there's a lot of other points that we can mention as well.
Aesthetic, though, I mean, is just a word. Is there a way to get it into more detail? What are the attributes of aesthetic quality?
Aesthetic and quality, what exactly means is the associations of minerals placed in the right place on the matrix. So
Okay.
basically, how I would define aesthetic is if there is a matrix and the crystal is right in the middle of the matrix, freestanding, and on the side you have a little bit of quartz or albite or anything. For me, that is a super aesthetic piece. That it starts to show itself that it's well balanced.
Balance. I think that's what I was waiting
Right.
for you to say.
So
I think balance is important.
it is very important.
Very
So,
important.
there's a lot of time you have a specimen that, the matrix is in the middle and the crystal is sitting on the corner or in the
Right.
corner. That's also good, but I think that would not be like super static piece. A best definition of static would be the specimen have to be balanced. The crystal have to be right in the place where it needs to be. So that's actually, I would say, about the static. That's the most important thing, I believe.
And damage or lack of it
Right.
is a great quality. We wanted them to be pristine and
Right.
very gemmy and all
Right.
that. When you're mining these, or when the people, when they're mining them,
Right.
how is that entering into the miner's idea of his work? Do you deal with that with the people you buy from?
We absolutely are, and I think we're working very, very serious on this issue because, Dave, as you know, sometimes it happens many times. You have seen a spectacular specimen that you
Yeah.
see, wow, the aesthetic is there, the quality, the color, the clarity is there, there's nothing missing, and all of a sudden you see there's a damage on the back of it or on the top of
Right.
it, which like makes you, oh wow, I wish that it wasn't that. So keeping that in mind, we always, when we go to talk to the miners that we tell them that how important it is and how valuable it is, that all you have to do is be a little bit of more care and be careful when extracting them. So I think they're learning more, and we are trying to just and tell them all important things, what they have to do, how they have to do the packing, because a lot of time, Dave, what happens is they just get the specimen from the mine in a pristine condition, but is the packing also is a big
Yeah.
problem for them. They don't know how exactly how to perfectly pack the specimen so it's not damaged. So we're working on that, and we all keep telling them that you should be very careful, take your time, don't rush, because the problem in our country, especially in Pakistan and Afghanistan, as soon as they open a pocket and something they see in the ceiling or on the side,
Right.
immediately they want to just take it out as money.
But isn't part of that because it's more of a gemstone mentality? They have always, very often or before,
Right.
mined for the gem cutter.
Right. I think that's a very good question, you know. To be honest with you, back in the days, I used to hear that, you know, they used to have a very gemmy crystal on the matrix. And of course, they were taking it off the matrix because they had no idea that it's more valuable on matrix. But, you know, having said that, you know, you'd be surprised, Dave, that even right now in the market that I am in Pakistan, if there are some really serious gem dealers, they see something spectacular. Like I've seen the likes of emerald on matrix, and I've been told that, oh, it's a good one, but if you just take it out of the matrix, it will make you more money. And I didn't believe then, but when I saw practically in some cases, it has happened that it's lying on the matrix in a way that you don't see, you know, how gemmy it is and how nice cut stone it will give. And still this perspective is going on, and people are still working, like, you know, taking off the matrix, but like, you know, rarely nowadays.
So it's still an issue for you.
100% it is, 100%.
So you feel you're still educating them, you're still having to tell them what you really need.
Absolutely, you know, like I said, you know, even now there are some people who are doing that, but I have to tell them that, look, the stone that you're taking it out of the matrix, you know, when you cut it, how much money you'll get, this is this much, but this is 3 times, 4 times more if you leave it as it is.
So it's a different aesthetic. I mean, you have to teach them more what aesthetics is to you. Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
Or you and your customer.
Absolutely, I think.
Do your customers, well, do your customers define these terms differently, some of them, or do you think the higher end, the collector, the one who's really looking for the fine minerals, are they defining aesthetic the same, or is there a personal aspect of this that makes it different for some people? What do you think?
I think it's a little bit different for some people. I would definitely say that. I think it's very, very difficult to put this in one word, Dave, about the aesthetic, because I know a lot of friends who are collectors, and some of them, they're not bothered about the balance and aesthetic that we discussed about. Like they say, oh, as long as the crystal is super gemmy and it has a great color, I'm fine with that, which is not a problem at all. But having said that, if we come to a conclusion that one wants a super fine matrix specimen, then I believe that, you know, we have to definitely look at all points that we mentioned earlier, that if you want the really best of the best, let's suppose there's a collector and he says, I want to just start collecting, you know, what's the best way? My advice would be, you know, the best way would be, of course, not only look for quality, which is important, the color, which is important, of course, the clarity, but on top of all that, to be honest with you, if the static and the specimen is not balanced, for me, I think it's an imperfect specimen, no matter even how great the quality of the crystal is, how great the color is. But I think it plays a major role in the specimen.
It's a very personal thing, though, you know, it's emotional. You know, I want to buy a rock that I come up to and it grabs me, it pulls me to the glass, you know? Those are the ones that I always feel very comfortable buying.
I think in my career, Dave, if you ask me personally, you know, since 32 or 33 years personally that I have been in this business, if you ask me when you are buying the specimen, what would be the best way that you know you have seen in your career, honestly, and this is exactly the same thing I would just say to all our fellow friends and the collectors and the newcomers, whoever, and it had worked perfectly for me. Like you mentioned, you know, I think the best way would be if you're going to the show or somebody's showing you, you know, that first glance of looking at the specimen, the first moment that you see, you know it, like within a second.
It's like love at first sight.
There you go. So if that happens, my advice is don't leave the specimen. Even though sometimes there's a price concern, there's a quality concern, but as soon as they unbox the specimen and you see it, and immediately it starts to talk to you. Oh wow, you know, that feeling that you get.
I agree with that.
You know, so when you get that, go for it. You know.
One word I haven't heard is size. I haven't heard that in this discussion yet. Size to me is, I wouldn't say irrelevant, but it's doesn't matter if the quality is there on something like this, fine. But I've seen you come to show with some things like this, you know. How do you feel about size as a character for the aesthetic and the quality of specimens?
I think, to be honest with you, yes, unfortunately for the larger size specimens, nowadays the trend is not that much. A lot of collectors and dealers that I know, they tend to keep the size not too big. Maybe just because of the carrying or because of taking. But to be honest with you, I would say when it comes to quality and aesthetic, overall, I'm saying, but of course everybody has his own choice. It does not matter that much, you know, the size for me. The most important thing is, like, you know, of course the price goes higher if the specimen specimen gets bigger and
Certainly.
the crystal gets larger.
Sure.
But I think for new collectors, of course, I've seen a lot of collectors that they just want to stick to the thumbnail and thumbnail only, which makes sense, you know, and miniature, which is easy to carry. It's easy, you know, you don't have a lot of problem. But I think size for me is as long as it has that attraction that you need when you put them on display at your house or at your gallery or in the show. I think that's what is very important. Like this show in Denver that I brought, you know, 2 or 3 larger pieces, but to be honest with you, the amount of compliments that I have on those, even though I have a smaller, very beautiful piece, is more expensive than that. I was actually very happy and surprised for the people because it pops out.
Yeah, maybe people don't see a larger one as practical in their home.
That's right.
Or in their shelf or something, or something this big.
That's right.
That's true. So color, I see a lot of variability in the aquamarines that you bring. Sometimes they're much less bright and the hue is not as saturated. Do you think color is necessarily as high of a ranking in aesthetics as some other qualities?
I think the color is, I would say, very important, Dave, in my perspective. I think because gemstones or minerals or crystals are all about colors, to be honest with you. I think the color is important in a way. Let's suppose, Dave, you have a very fine specimen of aquamarine. Let's suppose the matrix is the best you can get. Beautiful, nice, super shiny Clevelandite or albite. And you have this super gemmy, you know, crystal of aquamarine sitting right in the middle of matrix with a beautiful luster, with a beautiful termination. But you know what? It looks great. But imagine if there's no color. Unfortunately, all those points that we discussed earlier, that's gone for, I wouldn't say nothing, but that's gone for, you know.
It minimizes them.
Minimizes a lot, you know. So I think, but having said that, let's suppose we have a specimen, the same that I've explained before, but it's not clear. It doesn't have a good clarity. But if the color is there, but still like the contrast is there, you have the deep blue on the white with the smoky. So I think for me, the color is very important. Even if the clarity is not good, it's no problem. You know, as long as the color is there, we want contrast. And the prospect of specimens and collection is all about contrast.
That's another good word in this, I think.
And when there's a contrast, there's a beauty. And when there's a beauty, it's all about that. Attracts people.
Yeah, well, contrast sometimes is really enhanced by the associations. So just a single crystal on matrix is one thing, but it has 3 or 4 other minerals. Add garnets to it, the red, the blue, the white.
Exactly.
You know, much more attractive, I think.
Imagine, Dave, like you've been a collector for many years. You know, if you have aquamarine on albite, and on top of that, if you have a garnet with it, the value goes 2-3 times immediately high. And the reason for that is, of course, because of this color contrast. You know, usually a lot of people would say, oh, you know what, I want a matrix and a single crystal. I don't want distractions. But, you know, of course, that what we talked is the more minerals are grown together in one matrix, of course, the more color contrast is there, and the more color contrast, the more attractive and beautiful it gets.
It's like there's so many aquamarines. So many. For years we've seen, decades we've seen aquamarines coming out on matrix. They're amazing. They're beautiful. The ones though with the complex terminations, much more intriguing, much more interesting. But now you put a garnet or something else on there besides, changes the whole ballgame.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think I have been talked with a lot of dealers and collectors recently, Dave, because I'm sure that you know about the production from Pakistan, the aquamarine excessively at the moment is coming. But to be honest with you, to some extent, I do not agree with most of the people. What they're thinking is, for example, when I show them a beautiful crystal of aquamarine, without even saying anything about the piece, they say, oh, there's a lot of aquamarines coming from Pakistan. You know, that's fine. It's true. There is a lot of aquamarines are coming. But you have to see exactly the piece that you're seeing, what it has got. That's the number one thing. And number 2 thing, what I would say, it could be any minerals. For me, honestly, it doesn't matter if the tons of the mineral is coming. What matters is you have to see the specimen or the crystal that you're seeing, how good it is. Number 1. And number 2 is how many pieces of this quality